Let's talk about The Crow.
All right.
All right.
You're the big Crow fan. You should kick this off.
All right.
The knuckles.
I'm going to start it off and
Very
I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Let's just give the viewers, for those who have never seen the original, or for those who want to reminisce a little bit about the original.
We're gonna watch the original Crow right now.
No,
Aw.
I would love to, but YouTube won't let us.
Oh,
So okay, I'm a big fan of The Crow. I have Funko Pops. I have the graphic novels. I have the movies on DVD. And every time they're on a streaming service, somehow I find it accidentally and I just watch it. Doesn't matter. I've watched the original Crow movie. I don't know how many times. I probably have watched it more times than I have hair on my head, and I have plenty of it. So
just a bit.
with that being said, I could probably word the whole movie, word to word, I could say it. But the original movie, to me, feels like it's a romantic movie about two lovebirds who lost their lives, come back from the dead, and the husband is now out for revenge. He sits there and he goes out and kills everyone because they killed him and his wife, right? So it's like the ultimate revenge story.
Yeah.
Right? Can we all agree on that?
Sure. Yeah.
So the ultimate revenge story. You see their love through the flashbacks of when he's touching things that have meant something to him. You have this stylized movie that is very early 90s, but yet I feel like that movie was created, and if it wasn't, we would have never had movies like Blade, which was dark and stylized, or we would have never had Matrix, because the Matrix was also dark and stylized.
Mm-hmm.
So this movie kind of set that up. It was able to walk before these other blockbusters can run, right?
Yeah, okay.
Now, having said that, it holds a near dear place to my heart. Before the movie came out, I gave these guys some homework to do. I gave them my graphic novel so they could read.
Oh my God.
So they could understand what the movie was, what the graphic novel was, and what this, I guess you could say, reimagining was.
Reboot, reboot,
remake. I don't know. It all depends on how you look at it and what you take as your definition.
Same to me, but
so Big Grim.
Yeah.
I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
I want you to tell me how you feel about this 2024 movie.
Well, Mr. Spade, I did in fact do my homework
Nice.
this one time, and
A+.
Yes. Well, I don't know if you're gonna give me that after what I have to say, but so I read the comic, I read the graphic novel, and this is one of the things I did say. I'm like, oh, I've actually never read this. I'd love to. Oh, hey, I have it. Thank you so much for that. So I did read it, and if I would have read this as a child, firstly, my parents would have slapped the crap out of me. No, but for real, if I did read this in my younger days and I suddenly found out that they're making a movie based off of this, I would have cocked an eyebrow and said, really? They're making a movie off of this? I mean, okay, sure, but really? And going into that, like, it was... And the comic, the graphic novel was all right. It was okay. It's not like what I'm used to. I did enjoy what I did read. I did enjoy a lot of the lines. I did enjoy like a couple of the things. I enjoyed a couple of the metaphors and stuff, a little bit of the poetry that went into it. And then shifting over, then I saw the original Crow later in life. I did not see it like back in the early 90s. I didn't even see it in the 2000s. I saw it like maybe like 2010s or something like that, or like late 2000s. And let me tell you something. This movie, the original Crow, was amazing. Love it. Love it from beginning to end. Some of the hardest lines I've ever heard of in movies from this. It was great. It was phenomenal. True tragedy of what happened with the actor. Now, jumping to current events, I've seen this movie. It is a new Crow for a new generation. And what I have to say to this is it is unfortunate that this movie has to follow the original Crow. It
Mm.
truly is, because whether people think about it like, no, I'm going to look into it with fresh eyes. No, you're not. You're absolutely not, because you're always going to remember the original Crow and Brandon Lee. Now, having said that, there are certain things in this version that they did really well. There's one article that I did see that, like, oh, Bill Skarsgård acting chops are now called into, you know, uh, we're questioning everything that he does. Listen to me. He did the best of what he could with what he was given. That's all I have to say about that. Some of the like visual things that they did with the Crow, with the character, I'm not a fan of all like the tattoos and like all the face tattoos. First immediate gut response was, "Oh my god, it's a Suicide Squad Joker," and it wasn't. But at the same time, I'm looking at this. There are like certain takes that they did that I did agree with, and certain ones that I'm just like, okay, this is just bad. Like some things were taken from the comic that I'm like, this should have been left out. But then they decided like, let's add completely new elements to the movie, and I'm just sitting here questioning myself, like, what is happening? What is the purpose of this? Um, yeah, no. So essentially, and I'll chime in here with these guys because it's what I do, and I apologize to absolutely no one. Basically, if you're looking at the original Crow and you're looking for something that, like, oh, you want to remember the good old days, do not look at this. If you're someone new to the franchise and it, like I said, it's a Crow for a new generation, you want to look at this, yeah, I think you'll enjoy it, honestly. It's a very decent action flick, very, very good in that way. But other than that, if you're looking for a comic accurate adaptation, guess what? The original Crow movie was also not that either. So
Not even
take from that
close.
what you will.
Yeah, Pancakes. What do you think?
Like I still feel conflicted. Like when I saw it when we saw it on Friday night. Like that first hour is just felt tedious with the forced love story. I guess they were trying to still play up. There were two tragic characters. They were love of circumstance because they both escaped an institution. They were on the run. She was running from a past. He comes from a shady background as well. But then the second hour, you have an amazing action sequence in the opera house.
Oh yeah.
When he's taking out everybody one by one, so bloody,
And
so
they found
cool.
out about Darth Plagueis, right?
Yes, I
Yeah,
made the joke.
exactly.
Yeah, off to the side, the Emperor Palpatine was talking to Anakin about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. But joking aside, and then the ending when he's fighting the big bad in the in between world purgatory, like I think you mean,
Sure. Yeah, let's go
Yeah.
with that.
yeah. The first movie is a product of its time, and it was just so good. I'm more of a recent fan of the franchise than these two, so don't hate on me that. And I stand by what I said. And no, it's not like the first movie when I said that it's supernatural John Wick meets emo Joker. The first one is not like that at all. So that comment was ridiculous. It's just I mean, don't the review speaks for itself on it. We kind of sharing the views. We kind of share the opinion on that too. That first, like similar to Trap, like that first hour was like what, and then the last hour has some badass scenes, and the fight. Basically, when he starts going after uh the villains and his team one by one, like the fight sequences were actually not that bad.
No, they weren't.
And like I agree with Grim, like Bill Skarsgård did what he could, what he was given. Yes, I butchered the last name.
That's
Skarsgård.
fine.
Skarsgård, Bill Skarsgård. It wasn't, he gave a better performance when he was the main villain in last John Wick 4. So he tried to save the movie the best he could, but a lot of things felt so forced.
Well, see, that's the thing. Here's the biggest problem that I find with this movie.
What's up?
And to me, the biggest problem was they made this movie more about the love or the quote unquote love between Eric and Shelley.
Mhm.
In the original movie, you saw that in flashbacks.
Yeah.
And you believed it. For the first hour of the 2024 remake or reimagining, you're forced. It is like literally thrown down your throat.
I was
Like
thinking
you
that, yeah.
have to love them. Look at their love. I didn't see love. I saw a bunch of what felt to me a bunch of teenagers who did a couple of drugs. They went to an institution, then they broke out of it, and they continued to do their shenanigans.
I'll disagree with that.
To me, I did not feel like that was love. The way they spoke to each other, the way they were like FKA Twigs. I'm sorry, you can't act. You're horrible. You're horrible.
Uh-huh.
And I say that because the original person who played Shelley, she was barely in the movie, but yet I felt the love that she had for Eric.
That's
And
fair.
I also felt the love that Eric had for Shelley. In this movie, no way, not in any minute of this film did I feel like they loved each other. They showed us a couple of parts where they're just hanging out and they're doing this and they're doing that. To me, that didn't seem and feel like a loving couple.
See, I'll disagree
didn't.
with that with that Spade
Go
because
ahead.
very much so. Like I agree with you. I felt in the original that Eric and Shelley loved each other, and we just saw that with flashbacks.
Right.
And I felt that was great. It was very well written. In this version, we actually get to see the relationship blossom. It's not just, oh, we just put two people together and, like, yes, they love each other. Like, yes, they did escape like an institution essentially. One of them was very much just like, oh, I need to get out. And the other one's like, okay, I'll come with you. There's a
Right.
board here. Like, I understand that 1000%. But as they were out there, you did see them getting close together. Like, granted, they never got into an argument like most couples do, obviously. But having said that, like, very much, it was it was a little childish in the sense of like one of the lines that like just sticks with me in a bad way was, oh, what did you like about me at first?
Yeah.
I love that you were beautifully broken. And I'm like, man,
Tragic characters. Tragic.
I understand that, but I'm just like, even in my little emo heart, I'm just like, that's a little cringy. Just a little
A
bit.
little. That was a lot, man.
Ooh.
I'm trying my best
What?
here, okay?
And the other thing that I hated about this was
Yeah.
their deaths. Like, I understand in the original movie. Again, I'm looking at it from a fan's perspective, right? That's what you're going to mostly hear about
Yeah.
me. But I will say, towards the end, I will tell you how I saw it if I wasn't a fan.
Mhm.
Now, as a fan of the original, when they were on her and they literally, for lack of a better term,
Did their business.
did their business on her,
Yeah.
and then Eric shows up and they shoot Eric and then throw him out the window, right? That was gruesome.
Yes.
That you felt heartbroken when that happened to a couple that you're like, oh my God, these guys, they love each other so much. And this is what's going to happen on the night before their wedding.
Mhm.
Like that's so it's so heartless on what they did, right?
Yeah.
In this movie, it wasn't, to me, it was
They just threw bags over their heads and that's it.
Just to
yeah.
suffocate them.
I'm picking up what you're putting down with that.
I
Yeah.
I
So-
didn't feel that. It
Yeah.
felt weak. It felt so
So-
not even sad. It was like a pointless death. And that's why I didn't like that.
To try to give some credit, they tried to make it its own to show, he did all this revenge killing, payback killing to save her.
Yep.
And they brought her back from the dead. If they wanted to make it a little better, then both of them survive.
Actually, no. I'm glad that you brought that up because that is one thing that they did with this movie that I really did enjoy. I'm glad that they
Okay.
stuck to their guns with this because when we just to backtrack a little bit and to also cut out the legs from my own rug for a second and just kind of agree with Spade a little bit. We got to a point in the movie because we're told that like, oh, if you do truly love her, then you won't be harmed by anything, and you'll still be here,
Right.
and you'll still be able to like do your things. One thing, not to, I'm just gonna gush for a hot second. I love that they did here. The one thing I feel like that they did better in this one than the original one is that Brandon Lee, like when he became the Crow, he was just kicking everyone's ass like left and right and could not be stopped whatsoever. Versus in this one, Bill Skarsgård comes back and is still kind of that skinny kid that doesn't know how to fight and is just taking abuse the entire time and waiting for that one lucky shot to actually kill someone. I felt that was very well done.
I will agree with you on that. That was well done.
I think
All right, so please let me continue
Go
because I
ahead.
promise there is a point. I promise.
I hope so.
When we get to one point in the movie where Eric is very much questioning his love with Shelley, because at first he said, "No, I would never question our love. Our love is pure," and whatever gushy shit like that. He basically does question her, and then he loses his abilities for a second, and then the man in the world in between, which didn't also happen in the comics, but fine, whatever. Also shows up and it's like, well, you lost, kid. Sucks to be you. Sorry. There is one way to really do it. Okay, sell your soul. And Eric is just straight up, just like, all right, yeah, my life for hers, no problem. Cool. Now you're coming back. Now you're the Crow officially, and this is when the movie for these guys did start getting good. And I completely understand that.
Right.
The thing that I'm sticking to is that at the end of the movie, one soul is truly exchanged for another, and they stand by it. There is no, oh, I'm reneging on the deal so that we can both live or we both die. No, one lived, one stayed dead, and that's how the movie ended. And I'm so happy that the movie at least stuck with their guns like that.
supposedly with the ending, they changed it according to an interview with Bill
Skarsgård.
I was close there.
Yep.
They changed the ending to set up a potential sequel, and he had
Yeah.
reservations about the studio doing that.
That's another thing too, though, because now this is your fault for having us read the comic.
Wait.
Because that
It
if
gets
you read
better.
the comic, that's it.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah,
Now,
there's nothing else to do.
Here's the thing. Here's
Okay.
the thing. After watching the movie, I said that they left it open ended to be able to create a sequel, a trilogy or whatever,
Yeah.
some sort of sequel
Sure.
to be open there, right?
Yeah, let's milk it. Sure.
Right. Well,
Not much to milk.
I agree with
may
you
get
there.
a drop out of that nut. I don't know. 'Cause it's not a
Barely.
cow. It's definitely a nut.
Go on, Speed.
So the reasoning to that is I felt like they did that almost as if they were trying to continue it on like they did with the TV show, The Crow's Stairway to Heaven, where, yes, Eric Draven is still alive after he killed everybody, but there was also a bigger bad that's after that he had to help all these other people out. Like that was the cheesiness of the 90s TV
Yes.
show,
Yes.
which I understand that. And it sort of felt like they took the idea and concept from that and said, let's continue him still being alive. So that way we can make a sequel, and maybe in the sequel he dies, or maybe after the trilogy is all said and done, maybe then he can have his eternal love with the person that he loves. Except she's back being alive again, so that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
So what's the point? Is he going to somehow find some other guy in the purgatory and says, well, in order for you to get your life back, we're going to have you do this, this, and the other.
Honestly, I feel like, and that firstly to like continue on with that, like if you want to use like the same character and the same kind of story and everything, how are you going to follow up a guy literally cheating death and having people kill other people to essentially continue on living? That's number one.
That was the
Number
whole
two.
point of this movie, because
Exactly.
what was the bad guy doing?
Exactly.
He was selling souls to the devil in order for him to live forever.
Exactly.
So it's
how
like
do you follow
pointless.
that up? That's number one. Number two, the only way how I could see them actually doing this, continuing the franchise essentially, is to basically continue on like how the original Crow did, because spoiler alert, everyone, the series did continue in a series of movies that were not that well made and not that well received. And that's why we don't even consider the other Crow movies. There's just the original, and that's it. Moving on. We could continue on with that theory, but introduce an entirely new cast of characters, I guess.
Agreed.
Which could work, maybe. I don't know. Time will tell.
Not with this writing team. Not with
No,
this writing.
no.
But let's hold off a little bit.
All
I
right.
got. I'm going to throw some numbers at you guys, so,
Sure, bud.
so you
Thank you.
guys can see
Sure.
how bad or good, depending on it is, and then I'll give you my thoughts on how I felt watching the movie as a non-fan,
Oh boy.
or at least trying to be unbiased.
Hit me.
Okay, so this movie had a budget of $50 million, which
That's
relatively cheap,
Relatively
considering what we saw. Because I don't want to say it was a masterpiece visually, but it was pretty damn good.
it looked good.
For a $50 million budget, it was phenomenal.
Yep.
You would think the budget was higher.
Yes, exactly. Now they had a marketing budget of about $15 million.
Okay.
So figure $65
And
million
you know what?
dollars altogether, right?
I did see a lot of The Crow and other kind of like media and like stuff out there. Like I did see a bunch of trailers like for
Yeah.
this, so I get it was money well spent.
Yep. So now, by saying that,
Yep.
this movie only made
Mhm.
where did it go? I had it just here.
Yep.
This movie, I can't even get numbers for international. All I got was numbers for domestic. And
Okay.
for a weekend, for 3 days, and we're recording literally on the 4th day it's out.
Yep.
This movie has only made $4.6 million.
Mm.
$4.6 million. Okay.
Yep.
So that's why in the beginning I said that this movie is
Yep.
$4.6 million. Guys, the original Crow was $23 million budget. And that was because they had to go over their budget. It made it to 23 million because they had to go over budget because they had to film CGI scenes with Brandon Lee
Mm-hmm.
and have stand-ins so that way they could
They
finish
had to finish the movie.
finish the movie, right? So now, altogether, the original Crow made back in 1994 dollars, not in 2024 dollars.
Yep.
Back in 1994 dollars, it made on a budget of 1994 million dollars.
Yep.
It made $50.8 million.
Wow. Okay.
Okay,
Success.
very successful.
Yeah.
Now, this movie so far has only made $4.6 million.
Yeah. Nickels and dimes at this point.
To give it another perspective, the sequel to the original Crow, which was City of Angels, which came out in 1996.
I enjoyed that one. It was still bad, but I enjoyed it.
I can't find.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk
And by
about
later,
that.
I mean never.
Yes, that movie worldwide,
Uh-huh.
it made in its theatrical release almost $18 million.
It had a theatrical release.
Yes, it had a theatrical release and it made $8 million. Now, the opening weekend for that movie
Yeah.
was half of that. It made $9 million
Yeah.
on its opening weekend in 1996 dollars. So again, I want everybody to understand this, that
Yeah.
this movie today is a major flop. It
Yeah.
only made less than $5 million. It
It didn't even make
suffered-
its marketing budget.
So,
Go ahead, Pinky.
so all this after it was moved from its original release weekend back in June, which was the release day of Bad Boys,
Right.
Mhm.
when it would have been absolutely smoked and destroyed. But now on its own, quote unquote, on its own merit, it still was not good at all as far
That's
as
another thing, yeah, because you can say for like other movies, like for example, like Barbenheimer, right? You like when those movies came out, what, like weeks apart, like a week apart from each other?
the same day.
I'm sorry, excuse me, the same day. If one of those movies failed, they were both wide successes. I'm so
Right,
happy about
of
that.
course.
But you could say that, like, if another movie came out at the same time as this one, it's very easy to say, oh, this movie was good, but it just failed because, you know, blah, 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 like, came out.
Right.
And we've been waiting for blah, blah, blah for, like, years at this point. We're so hyped. Oh, my God, it's the next Endgame. Blah, blah, blah. See it in theaters. Anyway,
Right.
the point, though, is that, like, you could very much blame it on that. This has nothing else to blame. The only one to blame is themselves at this point.
Exactly.
unfortunately.
And I
I
feel
feel so bad for that.
like people, instead of going to go watch this movie,
Mhm.
they went to go watch Deadpool and Wolverine.
That's another thing too.
Which, yes, Deadpool
Yeah.
and Wolverine was a much better film,
Yes.
but I'm pretty sure the people that would have saw this movie went instead to go see that movie.
Or Alien Romulus.
Or Alien Romulus, right?
Why? No, I'm kidding.
No.
I know.
But I'm going to tell you this much, though. If you've never seen any iteration of The Crow, which there's four movies prior to this one,
Yeah,
and a TV show, and a graphic novel,
there's so much.
I will say this. If you went in there without knowing anything about The Crow, I think you will enjoy it, and you will think it's a end of the summer box office film.
Yeah,
I think that's what you think, because the original Crow was, like you said before, a product of its time. It had the look, it had the soundtrack.
yeah.
This soundtrack right here was so damn all over the place. I was wondering, why are they playing this song in this setting? It made no sense. So the original one had the style, the look, the soundtrack, the story, even the acting. You like, there was so much going for it. In this movie, somebody saw Zack Snyder's Joker and said, you know what? This would be cool to make him look like that. Like, the fact that he had I believe the tattoo on his
Oh, what does it say? Yeah,
lullaby.
I told you it said lullaby.
I believe it says lullaby.
Yeah.
Now, why? Whatever. It doesn't matter.
Doesn't make
There's
sense.
no, there's this. I don't want to take the director and make fun of him too much, but you had no stylistic vision for this movie. You took.
You know what? I'll make fun of him. It's no problem. I can do this. I'll make fun of him.
Go
Here's
ahead.
what you did. You kind of took an emo/gothic culture. You didn't understand it. You didn't do your research, and you shit on it. That's what you did. And you just thought, you know what? Let me get the guy to look like Post Malone for a second. Let me just drip him in tattoos, because that's what the kids are into now today, right?
Right.
Fellow teens? How dare you, you piece of garbage. Get away from my movie series. Get away from my culture.
Yeah. So, bottom line is, if you don't know anything about it, you might enjoy it. It's a good time waster. It's only about an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours long.
No, I think it's close to 2 hours.
Yeah,
It's actually 20 minutes longer than the original.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not that bad if you look at it from a non-fan perspective. Looking at it from a fan perspective, I want to shit on this movie.
Yeah.
I think we accomplished that.
Yeah.
No. Pancakes, I think we have to join our brother in Christ over here. We need to drop our pants and we need to collectively take a massive deuce.
Do you want the name of the director that you just went off on, or it's not even worth it?
Sure, why not?
Fadiv, what was his name? Fadiv.
No, Fadiv is an alien movie.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Rupert Sanders.
Rupert Sanders. Well,
Rupert Sanders, get out of my studio. Get away from my culture.
Oof. Look,
Yes.
there's a famous saying in the original movie.
Oh,
It can't rain all the time, right?
but it did rain on this one.
Oh, it rains heavily on this one. And
Oh, I did have one more point, but go on. So
I was going to close off with another quote, but go ahead, Pancakes.
Yeah, sure.
Shoot it out.
the crows themselves, it wasn't one singular crow, it was a whole bunch of it. I know in the comic it has more of a talking role, but in the original movie you felt its presence.
Felt like like the actual bird was a character.
It felt like a character.
Right.
It was leading the way. It just felt like a background camera that was just there.
Kinda. Yeah.
Like, that was done wrong. It just didn't have a presence. It was just a bunch of crows flying in the background, It just felt like a pointless cameo, under the name The Crow. Anyway.
Once again, Rupert, get away from my culture. Spade, get us out of here.
So with that said, I'm going to leave you with the words of Tintin right before he died.
No.
This is the really real world. You can't be you. And this movie, it can't be it. So with that said,
Bravo, sir.
Yeah.
Well said.
We're out. Oh, by the way, don't forget to let us know what you thought about the movie down in this comment section, and let us know whether you liked it, hated it, or you just want to shit on what we just said. Let us know.